Hey, I'm Dubem.
And I'm Maya,
We are part of
the Teen Arts Council.
And we're going to be interviewing Ryan McNamara. Ryan, thank you so much for coming out here, especially because your show's coming on in minutes. When did you first become interested in art?
When I was a teenager, like y'all, I didn't fully know exactly what it was. I just assumed that it was where I grew up in Arizona, so I didn't feel like there was a lot of folks in my neighborhood that kind of made sense to hang out with. And I just thought I saw that art was a place where kind of weird people were drawn to. So I just started researching it and got interested in photography. And I think that's everyone's story. It's just like a place where you can go to try to escape a little bit.
Yeah.
So you were kind of talking about your photography background, but then your performance tonight is like a performance.
Yeah.
So do you see yourself more as a visual artist or a performance artist?
Well, I mean, my background is in photography and sculpture. That's what I studied, but I was just watching a lot of performance, so I came to it as a fan. So I've never taken an acting class or a dance class or anything like that. But what's kind of the nice thing about art is you can just sort of bring in what you want, and it just sort of kept happening. I mean, it sort of chose me more than I chose it, because then people asked me to do it, and I liked doing it. It's nice. I have a studio practice too, where I'm by myself, and then I have this where I travel with 13 people, and so it's nice to have both, because it sounds really lonely to be in the studio all the time, but also sounds crazy making to be with these wonderful but crazy people all the time.
So it's kind of like you make your art and you're with this group of people, and it's kind of make these leading decisions to make the project go.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, just scheduling, just getting 13 people together is, versus going into a studio where you're like, well, the stuff is here and it's ready. So there's an immediate thing with that where, you end up becoming a ringleader and, just dealing with all this, which is so much fun. These are always kind of the highlights of what I do, because like I said, these people are crazy and brilliant. So someone is willing to fund us to do this is kind of crazy. Sometimes it's wow, plenty of hard things about being an artist, but I'm just I get to do that. That's pretty crazy. Yeah. I mean, that's a human thing, I think, right? I feel I don't know, it's crazy because artists put themselves out there a lot, but also I feel they're filled with the most self-doubt out of anyone. So it's this kind of you have to have I don't know, balls to put your name on something and fill a room where these are my ideas, but at the same time I just feel all of us behind that are just freaking out and crying in our bed.
Yeah.
I'm sure y'all know what that's like. How have your ideas and experiences surrounding the internet changed from when you started to create memes, just because the internet has taken on a very different role in the past couple of years?
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty dark now, right? Sort of nuts. I mean, I knew that part of this piece was just about kind of I mean, y'all grew up with the internet. I'm this generation that had when I was 9, I didn't have it, but then when I was a teenager, I had it. So, but it just happened, and there was no kind of, I mean, it's kind of magic. It's so crazy, but that transition just was so mundane. It just oh, well, now I have email. Now I can walk down the street and talk to my friend in Singapore. I mean, I don't have friends in Singapore, but if I did, I would talk to them on the phone. But it never felt wow, this is the future. This is so crazy. It just happened, and all of a sudden, it almost became, a nuisance. You're I'll answer those emails and all of that right away. So in a way, I wanted to kind of make a piece that was about exploring the kind of wonder that I never really had about it. Like over the last 5 years, it's just, yeah, it's gotten dark. And I mean, there's dark parts of the piece, you know, I think, you know, and it kind of brings up feelings of for people of being left out and things like that I feel like really can, like social media can really bring up. But overall, it's just like, isn't it wonderful the way that we all get to be together? And anyway, I believe that there's a way that the internet is that, but it's also like really messed up a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I have a question about the chairs that you had. You have these chairs or chair movers to move people around. What was your process for creating those, or like thinking about that idea of moving people around a space?
Yeah, it was like, I knew I wanted to sort of take on the, less so like kind of the starting place was the architecture of the internet, not necessarily the content, because the content is, you know, everything. So I was thinking about the way that, you know, we sort of click and, you know, you are looking at one thing and then you're looking at something completely different, like it's bizarre juxtapositions at all times, and how that again was unprecedented 30 years ago, you know, like on one screen, you know, you're like looking up something on Wikipedia for your history homework and like, you know, watching a Cardi B video next to each other, and so you're like, this is insane. But we don't think it's insane because this is how the world is. And so I was like, how would that translate into a physical space? And I knew I didn't want to use technology to talk about technology. So I was like, all right, well, it would be, you know, really kind of clunky. Like, you know, here's your view, and here's your view, and here's your view. Yeah, so it became about the difference between like clicking on a link, which is, you know, just this light little touch, versus like someone coming behind you, like pushing you down and, you know, making your view go to a different place. The purpose of it was to kind of show, you know, how sort of how these two things, it is sort of impossible to replicate it. One thing that was important to me though is that it was it really sort of played up like the passivity of like just receiving information, you know, which I think, yeah, sure, like we're clicking on the links, but still those links are like presented to us, and it's, you know, kind of giant corporations are putting most of that content out there. And so the idea of being passive, like while these things are happening to you, rather than like, I'm going to look at this and then I'm going to look at that, was really important to me to really like make you feel, because, you know, like as an audience member, you're sitting there and something's happening to you in a sort of traditional piece. But then like when someone's actually, you know, wheeling you around, it like really accentuates that passivity.
What like drew you to dancing?
I mean, I'm not a dancer. I just would go to it as a fan. In New York in the 60s, like a lot of visual artists and choreographers and stuff were getting together and making work. And so I actually I kind of got into dance through visual artists who were working with choreographers, like Robert Rauschenberg working with Maurice Cunningham. And it just seemed like this moment in time where all of these artists were helping each other expand their own practices. And I thought that was really exciting, and I didn't see that happening so much. Basically, the way it was happening in New York was curatorially, so there'd be, you know, a visual artist in a show with the choreographer, but it wasn't that they were kind of coming together. And I just started meeting dancers, and they're really like, good people. And so sometimes I'm like, all right, I'm done. I've done this, but then I'm like, oh, but I won't hang out with them that much. So like, maybe I'll do one more, two more. It's being with people. I mean, what I think is interesting about dance and performance is it's a very obvious choice you're making about how you want to spend time with people. Because, you know, it's crazy. I mean, this is going to be dress rehearsal tonight, then 3 shows. So that's 4 hours of an audience watching. countless, hundreds of hours have gone into those very few hours. So in our lives, the people who've created the work, I mean, it's 1% of what we've been doing. And so, you know, it's a way that I found that I want to spend my time is with these people and kind of creating this work together. It really bonds you super fast with people, you know? I mean, it's like, you're like instant, close people, and you don't even really, it's not like, it's because after rehearsal, you're like talking about your childhood or anything. It's just like performance as people, and you know, it's a really nice way of like cutting small talk, you know, and just like, all right, let's work. And really interesting relationships come out of that.
We're getting a signal.
What does that mean?
It's the lightning round.
What songs have you been listening to recently?
Well, I just said Cardi B, but I mean, I guess I have been listening to Cardi B, but it's just because I said Cardi B. So,
if you could learn to do something else, what would it be?
Sometimes like I know how to do so much stuff, and then I'm also like, I can kind of draw.
Yes.
What's your favorite type of sandwich?
I mean, who hates a sandwich? Like they're all good, right? That's not like I'm trying to make not a political like answer, like get some sandwich company mad at me.
Do you think it's pronounced Jif or GIF?
I feel like I kind of cringe when people say GIF, right? Oh, do other? Oh, GIF?
I say GIF.
GIF. What's the consensus? GIF.
It's good.
GIF feels a little off. Like, it's also peanut butter.
It is.
Yeah, it's not.
There's no correlation. Well,
Thank you so much for talking to us
yeah.
today. This conversation was really great.
Cool.
Glad that you say gift. And, yeah, just thank you so much.
Thank y'all.